I would like to call the August 5th meeting of the Historic Preservation Review Board to order. Roll call, please, Mr. Boswell.
Mr. Owens is absent. Mrs. Hartshorn?
Here.
Mr. Weaver is absent. Mr. Giesler?
Here.
And Mr. Johnson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Members of the committee, you all received a packet from Janice last week relative to the minutes. I trust you've had an opportunity to review those. Anyone have any corrections and or additions?
I had two really small corrections, I think. On page 1, under the first certificate of appropriateness, I think paragraph 1, 2, 3, after Department of Interior, it should be guidelines after that. Compliant with U.S. Department of Interior guidelines.
Okay. You're on page 1?
Well, I'm actually on page 2. I'm sorry. The first certificate of appropriateness.
Yes, sir. I still haven't found it. Oh, U.S. Department of Interior
Guidelines.
guidelines.
Paragraph down.
Okay. Your second?
It's really small over on page 4. The third paragraph down from certificate number 3, it should be lanterns instead of lanterns.
Okay.
Mr. Giesler told the board that he would like to mount 2 antique brass lanterns.
Yes. I'm really just proving I recommend it.
I have that on mine.
The next one.
Oh, no, that's the third paragraph down?
Can I see what you're looking at? Because I've got which one's on mine. Yes. Yes, sir.
I didn't have any corrections, Ms. Hartman.
No, I have no corrections.
With those two corrections, may I have a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hartshorn?
Yes.
Mr. Giesler?
Aye.
And Mr. Johnson.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for showing up this evening. What we'll ask is that as your name is called for the certificate of appropriateness, if you would, just step up to the podium. Tell us a little bit about the application. We've had an opportunity to review some things, any questions that we ask, try to get some clarifications on, if any. So the first item is Ms. Childers at 270 Valley Street. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
I have some different pictures for y'all because the one that I sent originally was incorrect, which we noticed when we were looking through the documents. There we go.
Thank you.
This one. I think this one as well. So we went around town just looking at some of the other buildings in the area, historical, and just trying to decide what we would like to do to the front of the building. To take the paint off and make it look new again and give her a little excitement. So I guess it's sort of like an English pub style, and this darker green, and then the black around the top of the door. And we're calling it the spring house because the spring house on the left, if you're facing the building, was the area that provided the water for the William King initially. And because there were 3 different businesses in there, we thought a central name like the spring house would be easier than picking a business that you're going to visit in the building.
Okay, so your color is actually green?
It
Yeah,
is.
black.
It's a darker green.
It's a darker green with the black, and then your lettering is actually a camel or?
It would be a goldish color,
Goldish.
yes.
As far as the exterior features though, you're simply changing the paint.
Just changing the paint, and we would be adding the letters.
Yep. Anyone have any concerns, any comments
Yeah, I
on the
do.
lettering group?
I mean, I think it looks really good. My only concern is, you know, we have a sign size limitation in the
Right.
historic district. And so this area above here that where you're putting this, that's not an existing sign, that's where an old transom used to be that they boarded in.
The transom there's a transom still in the middle on the staircase. All of that is windows above.
Right, but I mean, the part where you have the lettering, that's not an original sign, that used to be historically a glass transom, and they boarded that back in, and so you're putting letters over top of what used to be, you're not putting up, restoring a historic sign or continuing a historic sign, you're putting letters over what used to be a transom. So in our guidelines, we allow existing signs and we allow restoring signs if you have evidence that there was a historic sign, you're gonna replicate that. And I think this looks really good, but it's not doing either one of those things.
Okay.
It's creating a sign where there wasn't a sign before, and, it's really big, it's bigger than our guidelines, and so it's a new, so I'm just kind of struggling with that.
Yeah,
Can I add, I'm the spouse.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes,
So
sir.
we had talked to Jason about it, and the lettering that we would use would be appropriate for signage on buildings. So it may look larger than it probably actually would be. This is more of a rendering, not exactly. I know that we were gonna follow what Jason had outlined as the appropriate size for lettering, and it would be in line with catbirds as well as the barbecue place, so it would not exceed the letters that are there. And as far as the windows above, do you have pictures of those? Because we have
We-
personally been trying to find those. and
We
don't-
do, yeah, actually we do. Here,
In your packet? That's awesome.
no, I have them from other,
Yeah, we have not.
this is on it, they were all, see these this is up further,
That's
this was
not
all,
our
well, I know that's not, but we've been doing a lot of work on this building.
Yes.
And so we've done a lot of research, and, we've been able to see that this is what used to be here is what's still here, except that the transom, if you look above in your building, if you look where those blocks are, that used to be glass. They've taken, it used to be glass just like this. They still have the metal columns up here. And I mean, I can show you everything we have later, but we've been looking at this for a couple of years now in terms of the whole, the buildings. But my point is, that's not a sign above there. That's not what that was historically. So you're putting in, a new feature. I think it looks great. I do think the letters are too big. But I understand your explanation about that. Now, catbirds and signers, those are original signs from the 1840s or 30s. I mean, we have pictures of those signs in the 1800s.
You mean there were signs there? But they don't exactly say what they do now,
Right,
but
they're
they're
different
just.
letters, but they're the same style of letters. And the sign's actually, the wooden sign that's hung up there is on the right-hand side is the original sign that's in the early pictures. And so what I'm saying here is that was not a sign, that was
It's not in this
a
one.
transom.
So are you indicating that there's a requirement to put things back to the original of the specific building? Because to me, this is signage that is in line with other buildings, other businesses in the area. So
Well,
we're replicating or trying to replicate what other businesses currently look like?
Well, the way the regulations state that you could leave it as is right now, but if you modify it, you have to go back to what basically the original, not basically the original design.
But Morgan's has a sign, many businesses on Main Street have signs,
Correct,
and they're with the sign requirements.
which are 4 square feet.
4 square feet.
I thought there was a separate signage requirement that we were looking at for lettering.
Not that I'm aware of.
It just says that sign size restrictions do not apply to hotels, theaters, restaurants, and churches. And board approval as to the size of these signs is required and may be granted according to historic precedents.
Individual signs should not exceed 4 square feet. Double-face signs are permissible. The size limitations will be calculated by measurement of a single face. Size restrictions do not apply to hotels, theaters, restaurants, and churches.
So I guess you're thinking this qualifies as a restaurant?
If we were to go, so we love Abington, so our goal is to go historic and to really preserve things. The reason for that signage and size was to kind of follow in line with Catbirds and some of the other restaurants
Right.
here, or other businesses. I mean, we could use that exemption, that's not our intent, is to kind of subjugate or go around the board, but.
Well, I think what you're suggesting here looks good with the letter smaller. I think it would look nice, and I think it would be consistent with the historic district. What I think we're struggling with is, every time we allow something, then it's usually not too long before somebody comes in with something similar that doesn't work with the building, or doesn't look nice, or isn't consistent, and then we've varied from the guidelines in a way, so.
Well, and
That's-
in all honesty, not to cut Mr. Giesler off, in order to vary from the guidelines, we can do so. We have the discretion, but it has to be a 4-1 or 5-0 vote. And with 3 of us here tonight, any deviation, we would not be allowed to do. Now, you got a second sign, which was a freestanding sign.
Yes.
You know, that we can talk about. And again, I think, I don't have really a problem with this. I really like the historical significance you're pulling in the spring house, which is right around the corner. I think it adds, you know, I think it looks nice. The sizing of the letters, you know, a little bit large, but the problem is the way our guidelines are written right now. And one of the aspects of the board is that we honestly try to be consistent in the interpretation. If it's in here, then, you know, this gives everyone, gives the public, real estate agents, everyone, they know what to expect, what they have to comply with. If there is a deviation, and, you know, such as this, that is allowed, but we don't have the personnel to grant that deviation this
Right.
evening.
Could I ask a question? So if we were to explore the likelihood of being able to restore that back to glass, would that be something that we could come back in and discuss? Okay,
Would think so.
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Let me ask you, well, I mean, what about this exception for board, sign size restrictions do not apply to hotels, theaters, restaurants, and churches? I mean, what?
Is the whole building a restaurant?
We're zoned, or being, it is zoned as a restaurant.
The whole spring house,
The first floor,
first floor?
correct. The second is currently zoned office space.
What if they did restore it, and I just would like this to, just to clarify, if they did restore it to glass, would they be allowed then to paint the glass to say the spring house, or would that be running into another problem?
If I can interject just a second, if as the Article 21, the sign ordinance states, we don't regulate window signage.
Okay.
So, I mean, my interpretation is, as it's written currently, I would say that yes, they would do that.
Would that be something you would consider?
Yes.
I mean,
I don't know if I would necessarily say paint, but.
Or maybe vinyl, because they
Or
make that a
whatever,
lot
yeah,
more
but you know what I'm
indestructible.
saying, where you
Yes.
still have the glass with the
Like it would
letters.
look stamped, or,
Mhm.
yeah, in an old fashioned
And
lettering.
maybe not quite so big.
Maybe not quite so big.
you're gonna have wooden separations between the glass though.
Yes, they are.
I mean, you make it still work out the lettering. Well, let me ask you, are you, I mean, would your preference to go with this if you could have it even and not put the glass in, or do you like the idea of restoring the glass?
Look, that's gonna take two different answers, because I'm also quite eager to open up.
Right.
I would like to do either way. I think the idea of restoring the glass could be amazing, because I do like keeping the character of the building the way it was. I mean, we've kept the tin ceilings and uncovered those, and they're beautiful, so, I do think that that would be a possibility. It may not be something we could do right away, but we would definitely consider it.
The one concern that I would add to that is I'm not sure what it looks like underneath the plywood they put on there. It could be a quick, beautiful, we buy glass and we glaze it in and we're done. Or it could be, we find out that we have a whole new problem to deal
Right.
with. We're looking to hopefully open in a couple weeks. Is there a way to get a decision for both of them? Is that acceptable, that maybe we could utilize the exception for the
How long
current
would
signage?
it, let me ask you a question. How long do you think it would take you to kind of experiment to see what is behind there? And
I can rip off some plywood tonight. So we're looking at a
So you need
phased
to-
opening. So the right, as you look at the front of it, the right side is the bar side. So our coffee shop is the front part of the bar, the back part of the bar is gonna be the cidery.
Mhm.
So the phase one is gonna be opening that. Phase two is gonna be opening the den, or the larger gathering space. Probably more toward after we control COVID a little bit more. So I could pull that off tonight and tell you what it looks like under it.
And the reason for the question is, we by no means, we thoroughly, the board itself and as a resident in the historic district, very, very grateful for individuals undertaking projects of this nature. And certainly do not want to be a hindrance in any way, shape, or form. But it's got to be in compliance with these. We are more than willing to, you don't have to wait a month. Okay, if this was something that you explored and said, hey, we can do that, or no, we can't, we can communicate with each other, set a time, and have another meeting, in advance of a month. If you want to bifurcate the two issues, take on the smaller sign this evening, explore this, and then provide notice back to Jason, that is certainly an avenue we can proceed. Again, we don't want to be a hindrance, but if you do restore it, it needs to go back per the guidelines to what it was. If there are economic or other issues that, bear exploring, we can certainly consider them. And that will afford an opportunity if we do have to deviate from the guidelines, to possibly have a fourth member.
So either way, there's many things that we can do, scrape, paint, and work on if approved by the board. If you wanted to couch the springhouse lettering, I could have an answer to Jason in a day or two as to what it looks like behind there, if it's gonna be something we're gonna be able to tackle. Yeah.
Does that sound reasonable to the board members?
It does.
There's a pause.
Well, I mean,
In that same vein, part of the doorway is not original, and I'm not a fan of it. If you look above the door, there's an arch shape that is not gonna be
Yeah.
from the time period, it's
And there was
not.
a transom there too.
There would have been a transom. The one door, or the one picture that I've seen is William King House, and you just see a sliver of the building, and it's a double door. We wouldn't want to go back to the double door just for
Yeah.
emergency exits and all that. But it does have a double door and a small transom, and then it was blacked out on the top, but I couldn't tell if it was a window or not, so you kind of answered my question. So I said a lot to say, would we be able to take that arch thing off of there that is not, period, that is not, we would end up having to, if we ended up ripping it off and putting the glass, it wouldn't be there.
Yeah, I think if you have evidence of what it originally looked like, that would not be a problem to put it back to that.
Okay.
I mean, I mean, putting glass there would give you a lot more light, but I just don't know what you're gonna encounter when you get into that.
Nor do I.
And I mean, I think the idea on the upper part of the building is to go back and put the transom in also, so you would be, I mean, I know it's not your building, but I think they were all done together.
If that sounds like a reasonable route with you all, then that's something we can do this evening. We can consider the second, which is the smaller sign out front, and then if you would, just touch base back with Mr. Boswell,
Yes, sir.
and then we can be very responsive back to you.
Is that, are we pausing on the colors as well?
We're gonna have to meet again,
Okay,
so we can address everything at that time.
okay,
The second is the smaller spring house,
yes.
and you're gonna have to excuse me, my glasses fall.
No, I understand.
So it's trying to reach a happy median here. Can you tell us, and then maybe the dimensions, the material?
Whatever Jason said was okay was the dimensions.
Are you sure you're not a lawyer?
No, I was going with whatever Jason told me was okay.
4 square feet total is what you're allowed.
Yes.
So, and whatever the board deems appropriate.
And it's where existing signage was. Maxine's had her sign there for 60-plus years. Jack Byro actually gave us the sign he had in his restaurant, so the original one we'll have in the shop. Which was
Oh, that's great.
really
Yeah, I have
awesome.
some other things I picked up too, I'm excited. This sign would be wood, and we'd like to treat it and whitewash it, and have it branded to be read from both sides.
And again, the dimensions are under 4 square feet?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any concerns? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the sign, the hanging sign. How's it going to be secured in the building?
There is a wrought iron sign that was already there,
Okay.
and we can repaint it and spruce it up and use it again.
Okay.
And it will have black chain likely, like this one does to hang it.
Is that the only wording you're gonna have on there? Or
It
there
is.
anything else?
Okay.
Is it currently anchored into the building or it's not?
No.
Right, okay.
The
Just
anchor
make sure that
holes are
you're
there?
anchoring it into the masonry, which I think we discussed.
Yes.
Yeah, not the brick,
Not the
but
brick.
the masonry. The
Yeah.
mortar.
There's pre-existing holes that we'll utilize there in the mortar, not the brick.
And then I had the picture of the spring house here that I handed you also separately. There's only 2 of them, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
So you can see where the windows are boarded.
Oh, yeah.
There's at least 4 doors in the bottom, and there's a couple of windows up top. We would love to restore windows and paint them again to make them look new, just to spruce up the spring house area.
Are the windows still there or just boarded in? I mean, are they behind the board?
There are a couple of them that are there, and there's a couple that are inside the building, just in there. They just need to be installed.
Yeah. You're gonna use them as they're there?
Mhm.
Okay. That's great.
What are they on the side, or where are they on?
So there are numerous doors and bricks inside that little cube.
Wow.
It became a catch-all for those sort of things. So, we know that a couple of them went in there, there was a fire on the top, so there's a little bit of ash around them, so you know which windows go where. So,
That's just a neat building.
it is a really neat building.
I mean,
I hope you don't have a lot of surprises.
Some surprises are fun.
And they'd be painted white to match the existing windows in the whole building.
I move that we grant the certificate of appropriateness to the smaller sign and to the, restoring the windows and doors.
I'll second
I have a motion and a second, just for clarification. The smaller sign, as approved, under 4 square feet, it's gonna be wood, as presented, whitewashed, mounted to the structure in existing holes. The spring house, refurbishing the existing doors and windows. All of the windows are wood,
They are.
right there, okay, repairing that, so.
There's a Ford window in the door that is just plywood on top. We'll take that off, get someone to reinstall windows in that as well as above. It's just a window.
Okay. Mr. Boswell?
Sir, Mrs. Hartswater,
that. Aye.
Mr. Geisler,
Aye.
and Mr. Johnson.
Aye. Thank you all. And please, again,
I will.
very appreciative of the project, and I'm excited to get in there. I stuck my head in, being nosy, the walls I love.
Thank you.
With the brick behind them. I think that is very, very attractive.
The 10 was the biggest good surprise, the 10 ceilings. They are amazing.
Oh, did you have a drop ceiling and you took it down and they were there?
Ripped out the drop ceiling.
Wow.
It's amazing.
I think I walked in, you were up on scaffolding?
I'm sure I was.
There weren't any holes in it or stuff hanging from it or anything?
There was a little bit. There was some wiring, there was some old lighting. We were able to rip that down, paint as it was, because we did the, I'm taking time, I'm sorry. The 10 ceiling, because we painted it black, it's a semi-gloss, so it really pops all the design, but it also hides any of those holes.
Oh.
The holes then turn into nothing, which is awesome.
Well, we're excited for the opening, and thank you all
Thank you.
for undertaking the project. The second item on the agenda has actually been tabled due to not having an application for bed and breakfast to qualify.
That's great, yes, sir.
So we will move to the third item. Ms. Pasek. Pasek, what is the correct pronunciation?
Pasek.
Okay, Pasek. Please excuse me. Application for COA, we talked about this last month. These are the samples. If you would, just refresh our memory as to
Okay.
what is going where.
This is 106 West Valley. It's right along Plum Alley, and at the moment it is gravel and blacktop, and that will be taken up, and we would put the pavers down, or not pavers, whatever they are. And it's gonna be a big area, but it will sure look better than what it does now. And these are basically the same. This is limestone, the color, and this one is Savannah, and, you know, they're pretty much alike. This one is a more gray to me. My colors are not real great, I found out, so.
And the pavers are actually going to be,
They are much bigger. Well, there's 3 different sizes of them.
well, I mean, as far as the location.
Yeah,
You got the blacktop area, and then you've got the gravel area.
and all that will be taken off.
All the gravel will be taken up, or all the black?
Both.
Both. These are 2 different colors. Are you using the rectangular? I mean, you're gonna use, which paper are you gonna use?
The color wise?
Well, I mean, no, I'm just.
Oh, see, it comes like this, it will have different sizes.
Okay.
And these are the sizes.
Okay.
There's a bigger one and, I
I'm
guess
sorry, I
this
wasn't.
one and then a small one.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So they're calling it a different color, but basically that is the same color.
That's what I think, yeah.
That's what it's-
There are a couple dark ones that, I don't people really like the dark ones. So, yeah, one of them's like 7 by 14, then there's a square 14 by 14, and then like a 22 by 14.
Okay. And that'll help with your drainage as well.
Yeah.
So did we already approve everything except the color?
Mhm.
Correct.
Yes, we just have samples. That's
We
correct.
just needed samples.
Well, I move that we rank the certificate of appropriateness to this color.
And I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second relative to granting the certificate of color appropriateness for the color. And again, this is what's classified as gray,
Well, they call it Savannah,
Savannah.
yeah,
Okay.
and they call this one limestone.
Okay. We'll put both those in the record. Mr. Boswell, please.
Mrs. Hartshorn?
Aye.
Mr. Geezer?
Aye.
And Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Something else?
Yeah, I had bigger ones at home. I didn't bring them. The smallest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be careful.
Yeah, I don't have far to go.
The next item on the agenda is certificate of appropriateness. It's actually for Mr. Snow, representative, or,
I'm Mr. Snow.
oh, Mr. Snow? Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, this is just it's a urethane sign, that they cut with a router to mimic wood. And there'll be texture on the sign. The snows part will be raised and the fine meats will be raised. 16 inches by 32 inches, and that's a steel bracket there. And yeah, that's pretty much what I got.
Okay.
Is that the color of this color?
That's the color, yeah, that's a dark green and a sort of a match beige, sort of a cream mixture and a white.
Okay, where is this going?
160 East Main,
That's the building with the big corners?
Yes.
right, the corners that we all don't like.
It's looking a lot better.
We're working on it, we're working on it.
I mean, again, we're very appreciative for all of the activity within the historic district.
Right, right.
And
More the merrier, I see.
I'm very excited about this,
Yes,
for selfish reasons.
of course, of course. House cured bacon and sausages and,
When are you gonna open?
That's it.
well, that's, I've been asked that so much that I got my little 4-year-old son to record a little message on my phone that says, "We're not open yet." But no, we're looking at about 6 weeks right now.
Good deal. Good deal. Any questions? Entertain a motion to approve as submitted.
I'll move.
Have a motion to a second. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hartshorn?
Aye.
Mr. Geezer?
Aye.
And Mr. Johnson?
Aye. Thank you so much.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
The last is Ms. Cornell.
Well,
How are you doing?
well, thank you. I'm at 155 East Main. And when I tried to find a before picture.
Thank you, Ms.
And my backyard, my patio, I'm trying to get a patio. Before it looked like that. And those bricks at the corner were in pretty bad shape. And you can't really see, but around behind that brick structure was just a weedy, grassy mess. So it was being used for nothing. Okay, good.
Let me go back over. So you're just asking for,
I'm just asking, I apologize, I didn't realize, I thought if it couldn't be seen from Main Street that I didn't have to worry about getting the approval, so I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. But yes, all I'm asking you to do, the bricks had to come down if you see that original picture, because they were actually falling down, they're in pretty bad shape. So there was also a very big rock at the back, behind that brick deck that you saw. So originally, I thought, well, it would be nice to have a level, ground level patio that went all the way back to the house. But because of the rock and then a lot of concrete and brick just in that whole area, so we actually didn't end up being able to go to the ground level. That's why it's kind of at that level.
so all of these photos are from Plum Alley?
Yes, Plum Alley.
Yep.
Can I ask, so this project was already underway?
Yes.
And are you planning to have steps or something up
Yes.
onto that? Do you have
Uh-huh.
any pictures of what your
What
plan
it will
is?
be, no,
Because
unfortunately.
I'd really like to maybe see what you're doing other than just this piece of concrete.
Well, there will be a couple of steps, wide steps that go up to the patio. I think we'll only need 2. And then there will be a couple of long steps, and both will be a combination of wood and brick, because I still have some of the old brick that I'd like to use along. We have the middle, let's see, yes, here is the middle section.
Are you gonna put any facing on the concrete
Brick.
here?
Yeah, I would like to use as much of the brick as I can. I still have quite a pile. That whole middle section is now brick. And then have a couple of steps here that would be brick, and then room for 2 steps that go back up to that back porch. Long wooden steps with brick maybe on the outside again, just to incorporate some of that brick that I still have.
I just kind of have a little bit of visualization problem with it. I can't really, you don't have any plans?
Not other than not this. Here's a picture of the porch, actually that screen porch. You can tell that the back porch was first, and then they later added the screen porch, which I'd really like to take off the screen part.
So you're talking about doing more work than this then? You want to take
I
more
would
work
like
on the porch
to.
as well?
Yeah, I would like to take off the screen doors, you'll see.
I feel like that's a second project maybe.
Well, let me ask a question. I mean, are you working with an architect, or are you working with someone that's done any drawings or anything for you? Somebody's got to have a set of plans.
Yeah.
You know, you got a building permit for this. Is there a set of plans to go along with it, or anything of that nature?
Not officially, I mean,
Do you have anything unofficially that you can?
Well, just-
I mean, because normally, we have to have
Dimensions.
dimensions and something to look at so that we know what we're approving. And as far as the materials, you know, again, you're using the original brick, which is very good. But if you run out of that, what are you gonna be using? What mortar, I'm sorry, this goes in my mouth sometimes. What mortar are you using? Because within the district itself, you know, it's a lime-based mortar. It's not, because that was historically accurate. It's not Portland cement. All of these are things that we need to know so that we can then say, yes, ma'am.
Right, and if you say, if you run out of brick, you're using wood, that doesn't really give us an idea of what you're doing.
well, there won't be any running out of brick. I just want to use all the brick that I have. So the thought was just to have 2 long, 8-foot long steps that would come down. And we'd be putting back wood steps, which were there before. There were some small steps, I think you may see in the picture. So instead of the small steps coming down, we were gonna do 8-foot long steps. And there would be wooden steps, but again, just always for the look. I mean, if you can add any brick to the outside, I think it just would always, you know, just tie more brick together. I mean, that was the thought anyway. And then the other picture, you know, then off of off of the, right here, to, again, wooden steps, long steps. I think we're taking like a 6 foot down to a 4 foot.
Was there a building permit for this?
No, sir. I don't know that.
Is one, I guess, is
Yeah,
one
I'm not
required?
for-
Because one, if one was issued within the historic district, a prerequisite is to make sure there was no COA required.
Right, yeah, for a patio, Mr. Johnson, I don't think that USBC would require a building permit.
What was there before?
It was the brick. Did you see the brick picture?
The steps came down to brick?
No, the steps came down to the left of the brick. You see the
Oh,
brick?
okay, I see. So it was kind of a brick patio?
It was, I mean, I hesitate to call it a patio. It was, I mean, more of, I guess, maybe more of a deck, like a deckish.
Speaking to the contractor, it said it was basically a hole, once you stepped off of the, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Cornell, but once you stepped off, it was like an old type deck, and then there was a hole that there was just
It
a
was-
pile of old brick that had been dumped in.
It was concrete and brick, and like I say, behind that area was just, it had a big rock back there, so you couldn't, again, the idea of going to the ground was out of the question because of just all the,
Well, I think probably where we're coming from is that really with this type of thing, it's our job to make sure that new construction like this is consistent with, you know, the character of the house and the historic district, and is appropriate for the building, and is going to look appropriate from where it can be seen by the public, all those kinds of things. So this can be seen from Plum Alley. And so we've got this big bit of concrete right now, so that something needs to be done to make that have a more traditional look to where it will be appropriate for the historic district. And so what we need is a plan saying, well, we're gonna face this with the historic brick, and then we're gonna put, you know, 2 wooden white steps with a balance, with a handrail and a little railing around it that's going to be, and here's how it's gonna be designed, and here's the dimensions. And the same thing for the steps, you know, basically so that we can see that what you're proposing, what it's gonna actually look like, and know that, you know, we can approve that with confidence. Because those are the concerns we have, and so we can't really approve the plan until we know the specifics of what you're gonna do with that.
well, what you said sounded great. I mean, let's go with that, because that's exactly what I wanted to do. Yeah, cover, you know,
I
face
mean, I
it.
feel like that's what you're going to do, but we
Yeah.
just need to see that.
I'm just not comfortable until I know what
Right.
you're exactly doing, and I also have concerns if you're mentioning to take off that porch, that's a whole separate issue.
Well, not take off the porch, take off the screen.
Well, anything you do to that porch, though, I think we would want to know, I see a plan for that, I think, since it is visible from the alley.
And certainly, again, I've made this comment a couple different times, don't want to be difficult or an obstructionist. But whether or not a building permit is actually required is a separate and distinct issue, because the way the guidelines are written, it's any construction that is visible from a public street or public view within the historic district kind of falls under the purview. And that's the reason, you know, you mentioned you didn't know you had to come before here or anything of this
Yeah,
nature.
yeah, Main Street. but-
Yeah, can you get us some drawing or something of that nature that specifies the materials, the design, the dimensions? And it doesn't need to be by an architect, it needs to be as legible as possible.
Yes, I'm sure. we-
Is it your son that's doing the property on Valley Street?
Right.
Yeah, well, I think he's done, I'm volunteering him for your job.
Oh, he would do it. Yeah, no, he would do the drawing. Yeah, definitely. That, and he was the one who said, you know, the 6 foot long, deep step here, 4 foot long, deep step here, and then 2 8 foot long.
If you could just get us the drawings
That
and
part,
portions of that
okay.
and the materials. And
Yeah, I mean, right now, it just looks like I can't
You can't see it.
visualize what it's gonna look like. 'cause I
Yeah,
don't even-
okay, no
I
problem.
mean, I agree.
Okay.
And to take the screen off, what would you like to see on that? Do you have, I can't remember, any of those pictures show show the patio on the porch.
What are you proposing?
This, I would like to have it open like it was, instead of the screen here,
When
I'd like
was
to
it
have it just
Do
open.
you know what year that was, or when those screens were installed?
No.
So when you're saying like it was,
Oh, well, you can tell that the screen part was added. I mean, it was added. So I'm just thinking it would be nicer if it were just an open porch back there instead of screen. It's so small, you can't really, it's not like you can sit out there or enjoy anything really. It would be better if it were just open, I think. And then you have the steps going down.
Okay, coupled with
so that's.
the designs, if you would get us, you know, what you're proposing,
Okay.
then we're more than happy to consider it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Okay, one more question while I'm here then. The privacy fence that was there, that's what has been there, okay. It would be nice to add another section of fence there.
yes, ma'am. And the regulations provide for that, provided it's not over 6 feet.
Okay.
Alongside and back boundaries. Again, just if you'll get us the dimensions, the
Include
material,
that.
the, you know, what color you're advocating, would like. And then, again, we'll be more than willing to go everything. You've got
Okay.
3 different issues. Yeah, I mean, you've got the patio itself and everything that's involved in the patio, you've got the screen, then you've got the fencing.
Okay.
So
And the screen
if you'll get us
fencing.
details on those.
Okay, just a sketch.
Yes, ma'am. So
Okay.
with your acquiescence, we can table this matter just to next month. And then if you'll get that information to Jason, we'll consider it at that next meeting.
Okay.
Is that okay?
So, does it stay like this or?
Well, yeah.
I mean, if you want to move more quickly and you can get that to us more quickly, we can have a meeting before then.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah, I'm
ma'am.
sure Rob can draw up what
Probably
we're
gonna have
asking
one
for.
anyway.
We are. Just get the material, get the designs to Mr. Boswell
To Jason.
as
Okay.
quickly as possible.
Okay.
And then he'll communicate with us, and then we'll be responsive back to you.
Okay. very
Okay.
good.
And
Okay.
one more thing.
Yes.
I guess this is bigger than the previous patio, correct? So I just want to make sure if you don't have enough brick, what your plan is.
Oh, I have enough brick to
Okay,
face
I
that.
just, okay, well, that was just my concern to make
Oh,
sure you
yeah,
did.
yeah, I don't know if you can see the pile, no, there, yeah, no, I have enough brick. And to tell you the truth, the garden back there is lined with brick, the pathways are lined with brick.
Okay.
You know, I've got enough brick.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
Thank you.
I'm unaware of any public comments. As such, you know, before we get to the discussion item, the brick comment reminds me, what does the town do with the brick that it pulls up from the sidewalks?
I have no idea, Mr. Johnson. I would imagine that it gets stored at the either Public Works facility off of A Street or the sewer department.
Is there any way to get an idea of what projects may be coming up relative to sidewalk and what have you? Because right, wrong, or indifferent, taking up older sidewalks, and I understand the reasonings from a liability standpoint, trip hazards, things of this nature, but taking that up and then replacing it with a newer style brick, in my opinion, does absolutely nothing for the historic character of the downtown area. That's, you can call it a pet peeve, call it whatever. You know, the brick that they just pulled up in front of Rachel Folk's house, that whole area through there, you know, it's sitting on a pallet in front of Rachel's old house. I guess that homeowner wants it.
I can't speak to that, Mr.
Yeah.
Johnson. I have no idea.
But I'm just interested in how these projects come up, who they go before, and whether or not, you know, the committee may have any say in trying to work with the town. I understand the reasoning for doing so, But that, to me, walking on an old sidewalk is part of the character.
So are you suggesting that anything, any type of maintenance or repair to sidewalks, the board would like to have some purview over that?
Well, I mean, it depends on the definition of maintenance. I mean, what they're doing, I don't deem maintenance. I mean, you're replacing. If you're maintaining something, you're gonna repair it. I don't think that falls under maintenance. That's take up and replace. I would like to further explore it to see whether or not it is possibly under the jurisdiction and whether or not the board could have any input. Maybe not come before the board, anything of that nature, just have some input in projects of that nature, because again, personally speaking, I think it adds to the character of the town. Maybe I'm alone on that, but
How does that come up because property owners complain, or is that just as a town making
I'll be honest with you,
decision?
Mr. Geezer, I don't know, I'm not in charge of the public works department, so.
I'm actually
There's a lot
surprised.
of disconnect there because they're on their own time schedule, and I have my own stuff going on, and a lot of times, we're
Yeah.
not communicating on what projects are going on.
That actually surprised me that project was undertaken during this time, given revenue. Whenever
Yeah,
you're
that
talking
could
about
be.
tourism and things of this nature, maybe that project was awarded ahead of time, but anything of a,
Which I'm sure it probably was.
yeah, anything that was not absolutely essential or necessary, I would think would be tabled at this time.
Yeah, I would imagine that project was probably already funded and everything 6 months to a year in advance, Mr. Johnson, if I had to take a guess.
Well, again, that should have been after the meeting instead of the recorded. I apologize, but the brick comment got me thinking about that as well. Moving on.
I agree with you. I feel like changes in the historic district, I think everyone should play by the same rules. I don't think the town would have a problem with that. I know in the past, the town had a contractor that was fixing doing the same thing with sidewalks down below, down in front of Rain.
Mhm.
And I noticed they were loading up the limestone.
Oh, yeah, that's a no-no.
And
I-
hauling them away
I
to the
told them that
dump.
before they started this project. I said, "Do
And
not touch
so
the
I had to get on the board,
curb."
have to stop that, but, those kinds of things don't get oversight unless it comes, from a historic standpoint, unless,
Right.
you know.
Well, I totally understand where you're coming from. Don't get me wrong.
I know those things are a pain to deal with, but
Uh,
if we can't be hauling historic fabric out of this historic
Right.
district.
Just
expect-
please know that a lot of these projects start without my knowledge.
Right.
Well, no, we blame you. So that's,
Well, you're not the first one to do that, Johnson. That's okay.
you're the director of planning, buddy, so that's it.
I'll take that one on the chin.
All right.
Sir.
Moving on, discussion, Depot Square. Mr. Boswell, please.
Thank you, sir. So, DHR, we worked in conjunction with DHR to do a survey of the Depot District. I wasn't actively involved in this project because I was involved in the original Historic District survey update. So Ms. Triplett headed this up, but it looks as if DHR has determined that every one of the structures in the Depot Square District is eligible for nomination in the National Register of Historic Places and the Virginia Landmarks Register. And being that we are a certified local government, DHR is giving the board the opportunity to make any comment that they deem necessary or appropriate to the nomination. And we have 60 days. They plan on taking this before their board on Thursday, September 17th, for nomination.
So what are they looking for from us?
Just any comments you have, any concerns, any comments, I can,
Is that whole part already part of the historic district?
yes, it is. What this will do is this will include it in the National Register, which will make it DHR official, if you will. And those in the Depot Square would then be eligible for federal and state tax credits along with
So we're-
The rest of the historic district already is, but that part's not
That's
included.
correct.
I think we should definitely be in favor of that.
I do too.
Yeah. No.
And you don't have to make comment, we get these things a lot, and different things that are going on. You don't have to make comment, but if you feel the need to make a comment, please shoot me something, and I'll be happy to forward that information on to DHR.
Would a letter from the committee itself, basically addressing its support of the project?
Would that
be
help?
worthwhile?
If you choose to do that, sir, if that's what you'd like to do, that'd be fantastic.
Should we as a board pass a resolution, encouraging or supporting it, or have? what would that-
I don't know legally if you need to do that or not.
No, but it's.
But maybe it would just sort of help show there are support behind it.
Yeah, correct, as far as a motion, and us pass a motion, and want to identify all of the structures within it. You've got the Depot Square, you've got both buildings there.
Trying to get info in.
You got Mr. Combs'
Are we down here?
structure,
Over here?
Depot Square.
I mean, that's over by the post office.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
That's the hotel also,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
and
Correct, along with Performance
starring
House.
artist.
Oh, there we go.
Yes, sir.
They-
Oh, and the performance
That's
hall,
what
okay.
it's called.
Performance House across
Across the
tracks.
tracks, okay.
And also that includes the footbridge. Technically speaking.
What's left of it?
Technically speaking, that's an interesting scenario. We don't have to get into that in the meeting. We can discuss it after the meeting if you choose. But it's actually still owned by the railroad, but the railroad basically has just said we don't have anything to do with it. So the town has been putting money towards trying to restore it.
This is the area.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And what's interesting about this area, used to have Van Supply that was actually over here. You had a railroad spur that at one time came up behind where the post office is. Came up behind the post office,
Where
to
the
the back
police
side,
department.
to the backside of the hardware store that was, I think that was Van Supply. You had the Belmont Hotel, you had all of that. That was right there at one time. That was a bustling center, back in the 40s and 50s. I'll entertain a motion to draft a letter. I'll be more than happy to do so in support of the designation, by the historic, nominating Depot Square to the National Register of Historic Places. And I'll phrase it more accurately than what I'm doing right now, but
I move that we proceed in that manner.
I second it as long as we do it.
I will do it. Mr. Boswell?
Mrs. Hartshorn?
Aye.
Mr. Geezer?
Aye.
And Mr. Johnson?
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Boswell.
Yeah, thank you all.
Any other matters before the board? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, Mr. Boswell.
Mrs. Hartshorn?
Aye.
Mr. Geezer?
Aye.
And Mr. Johnson?
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
We